Hello again, Year 10, it's Miss Crump here. Today we'll be learning how to plan and write an exam answer on the poetry anthology. You will have to compare two poems, one will be named in the question and you will choose the other one. We will learn a planning strategy, look at a model answer together and plan for an assessment on a different question. Next lesson you will write up your assessment answer and submit it to your teacher. For today's lesson, you will need your workbook, a pen and highlighters if you have them. Don't forget to mute your social media notifications so you can really concentrate. If you need to, press pause while you get your things and when you're ready, press play to move on. I'd now like you to work through your do now. Press pause, answer the questions and then press play to check your answers. So the best definition of conceptualised is a fully formed idea that shapes your answer. And as you'll see when we look at the assessment criteria, conceptualised is one of the key words in the level 6 criteria. That's for grades sort of 8 to 9. The 5 skills that you need to demonstrate in all of your literature answers, except unseen poetry, where you don't have to include context, because of course you've never seen the poem before, so that would be very difficult for you, are, first of all, answering the question and focusing carefully on the task and also the whole text. So not just the bit that's printed in front of you, but the rest of the text too. Supporting your points with quotations, again, not just from the extract, but other quotations that you know from your study. Commenting on the writer's methods, that's language, structure and form, including terminology and linking your points to context. Overall today, we're aiming for you to be prepared to do an exam practice question next Wednesday. To get there, we're going to cover 3 objectives. First, gaining a good understanding of the assessment criteria and what you have to do to get a good mark. Second, learning how to plan your answer. And third, identifying the features of and evaluating a model answer. For activity 2, I'd like you to read through the mark scheme and extracts from level 6, approximately grades 8 to 9, and level 1. What skills appear in both the level 6 and the level 1 criteria? How are the criteria different? Then in your own words, try to explain what you need to do to get a high level in the exam. Press pause, complete the activity, and then press play to move on. You will probably have noticed that each of the bullet points in the mark scheme corresponds to one of the skills in the checklist, but the examiner is grading you on how well you demonstrate each of these skills, so you really need to practice until you get really good. For AO1, you need to focus on answering the question for each of the poems rather than just writing whatever you know about them. And for a high level, you need to make sure you've got a good, well thought out idea of what each of the 2 poems seem to be saying about the theme of the question and how they're similar or different. You also need to include quotations, but for a high level, you need to choose these quotations really carefully and make sure you use them well to support your points. For AO2, you need to comment on the writer's use of language, structure and form, and you have to use subject terminology when you're doing this. You will achieve a higher grade if you analyse their effects really precisely and in greater depth using the paragraph structures we've practiced to help you to achieve this. And finally, for AO3, you need to mention some contextual information. And for a higher grade, that information needs to be relevant to your interpretation of the poem and the points you're already making in response to the question. Notice there's only 1 bullet point for context, so it's worth fewer marks. So keep this bit brief. Now we know what the examiner's looking for in an answer, we can start thinking about how to deliver it as soon as we read the question. For example, compare how poets present fulfilment within romantic relationships in Love's Philosophy and Sing Song. The first thing I would be looking for is the key word in the question. What's the main thing I need to focus on? Then, what can I say about that theme in the question for each of the poems? What relevant points can I make about the poet's use of language and structure and also form? How can I include context? And finally, how can I use write a lot about a little and literal, metaphorical, symbolic to help me dig deep and make detailed exploratory comments on language and structure? Actually, I might even be thinking when I read the question that I've practiced writing a paragraph, an LMS, or write a lot about a little paragraph before in class, or the teacher has shown me one, and I might be able to use some of those ideas in my answer. So if you revise well and prepare well, that can really help you when you go into the exam. We're actually going to break activity 3 down into two sections together, looking first at how to plan. Study the question and the essay plan. Do you think it will allow the student to meet the assessment criteria? Press pause, complete the first part of activity 3, and then press play to move on. Now, there are several ways to plan a good answer in this exam, but this is the method I'd like us to use this time because I think it works really well. First of all, we identify the key word or phrase, its fulfilment here, and then use a chart to help us compare the two poems. Firstly, the ideas, compare whether or not the speakers have found fulfilment, and for the really top grades, maybe consider what the writer is saying about the whole idea of romantic fulfilment. What is it? What is it important to the writers, etc. Then select an aspect of language that shows what they are saying about fulfilment for each poem, and do the same with form and structure. Then look at the endings of the poems. What do they imply about the theme of fulfilment? When you write, each row of the chart will then be a section of your essay. As I read through the model answer for you, see if you can identify how the essay follows the plan. Both Love's Philosophy and Sing Song explore the issue of fulfilment in a romantic relationship. But while Nagra's narrator has found fulfilment with his newly bride, Shelley laments that nothing in the world is single, and his poem is suffused with desire and longing. Although the two poems offer contrasting views of fulfilment, both narrators are in agreement that fulfilment within a romantic relationship is of the utmost importance. In Love's Philosophy, Shelley uses images of unity in nature to illustrate the speaker's desire for fulfilment within a romantic relationship. Shelley uses the physically suggestive verbs such as the mingle of the fountains and river, the intimate kiss of the mountains, and dramatic, exaggerated clasp of the waves to highlight the intense physical longing the speaker feels towards his beloved. In particular, clasp indicates perhaps that the speaker seeks protection, security, and mutual support in his relationship. Shelley thus indicates that both physical intimacy and trust are integral to finding fulfilment within a romantic relationship. Moreover, the dramatic natural imagery of mountains, ocean, and waves gives weight to the interpretation that, for the narrator, a romantic relationship is of the utmost importance. It is clear that for Shelley, humans should follow the example of nature and find fulfilment in a partner. Similarly, Nagra focuses on the unity between the speaker and his new wife to highlight the fulfilment in their relationship. The repetition, Vishere and Chapati, Vishere and Chutney, in the second stanza emphasises the extent of the couple's togetherness, and the repetition of the possessive phrase my bride in the 5th, 6th and 7th stanzas demonstrates the speaker's pride in his marriage. The sense that their relationship is affectionate and carefree is further accentuated in the 8th stanza when the speaker talks of returning from the tickle of his bride. It is clear that the relationship is founded on a mutual sense of fun and enjoyment, and that for the speaker this is a key aspect of fulfilment he finds within the relationship. In both poems, the poet's structural choices also play a fundamental part in depicting romantic relationships and the fulfilment with them. The increasing scale of the imagery in Shelley's poem, showing water joining larger and larger bodies, suggests that loving someone makes you part of something bigger than yourself, and that this is perhaps a route to fulfilment. The structure of each stanza is also important, as Shelley deploys confident assertions within the first 5 or 6 lines, contrasting with the rhetorical questions in the final lines of each stanza. Why not I with thine, and if thou not kiss me? Where the narrator plaintively wonders whether he will ever find the fulfilment he seeks. Moreover, these final lines are only 5 syllables and thus disrupt the regular iambic tetrameter of the poem, separating these lines from the rest of the poem, just as the narrator is separated from his lover. This is an abrupt and jarring experience for the reader, and perhaps reflects the experience of those denied the fulfilment of a happy romantic relationship. Similarly, the structure of Nagra's poem is integral to his illustration of the romantic relationship. As well as the use of repetition discussed earlier in the essay, Nagra uses contrast to show that the fulfilment found within his marriage is more important to the speaker than his work in the shop. This is highlighted in the way the poem alternates between descriptions of the marriage and the customer's complaints, which emphasise how often the speaker neglects his work in favour of spending time up the stairs with his newly wife. Furthermore, the structure of the rhythmic, song-like exchanges between husband and wife at the end of the poem, "From die stool each night she say, from die stool each night I say," highlights the closeness between them and demonstrates the fulfilment both partners find within their relationship. Overall then, it's clear that for both poets, fulfilment within a romantic relationship is a pressing concern. The ending of Shelley's poem, however, leaves the readers themselves unfulfilled, as we are left only with the narrator's hyperbolic question, "What is all this sweet work worth, if thou not kiss me?" It is left to us to speculate whether this is just one last desperate attempt on the part of the narrator to persuade his beloved to provide him with the fulfilment he craves, or if he is truly despairing, questioning the point of the world and his existence. Nagra's poem, by contrast, leaves the poem hanging after the final word, "is priceless, baby," suggesting that it not only is the fulfilment the narrator has found within his marriage more precious to him than money, but that he is able to look contentedly into a future where this romantic fulfilment can develop and grow. A really good way to deepen your understanding of the different skills is to give feedback on an answer. This is obviously a good essay, but how exactly does it meet the criteria, and what else could the student do for full marks? Press pause, complete activity 5, and then press play to move on. So this would be the teacher's verdict. What went well? The essay has a very clear structure and is sharply focused on the question. There is a sense of an overall conceptualised overview running through the essay. There is some detailed examination of language and structure with terminology used effectively. But to improve further, the literal, metaphorical and symbolic method and the write a lot about a little method of paragraph structure would produce a deeper analysis of language and structure. Also, add in a brief but specific link to context for at least one of the poems. You're now ready to begin your plan for Wednesday's assessment task. The question is compare how poets present difficulties in love in The Farmer's Bride and one other poem. Identify the key focus of the question and then use the planning templates in the booklet as a starting point. There's no YouTube video for next lesson. You'll just be typing or writing up your full answer to this assessment question. If you have any questions, submit them to your English teacher through Show My Homework, and make sure you submit everything by the end of the day on Wednesday, or sooner if you wish. I've really enjoyed teaching you all this term. Good luck with the assessment, and we'll see you in September when we will be finishing studying the rest of the poems in class.